Welcome to the Neuron. I'm Pete Huang. I was at the Google I/O conference on Tuesday, where Google did their best to follow OpenAI's Monday product launch event. So today, I'm taking you through which of the 100 launches from Google are important to watch and where I think Google is in the race to win AI. It's Thursday, May 16th. Let's dive in. One of the biggest surprises from Google I/O was people's emotional state, even among the Googlers that I talked to. If I had to pick a word, it would be reeling. Google had a ton to announce that day. They only get to do this showcase once a year, and many teams should have been excited to share their updates with the world. But even the Googlers had been closely watching what OpenAI had announced the day prior on Monday. GPT-4o and their new voice mode had some of them nervous about the impression that Google's keynote would make, especially among the people paying the most attention to AI. And not even Loop Daddy himself, the illustrious and chaotic Marc Rebillet, could get them in the right mood, though it was super fun to watch a bunch of people have their first ever reactions to Marc Rebillet. It seemed like the OpenAI plan had worked once again. The playbook is simple. Whenever Google has something on the calendar, make sure you schedule something right before, and make sure that your thing makes Google's thing look like a follower, not a leader. So Monday, OpenAI announces GPT-4o and the new voice mode with a ton of live demos showing off two elements that turn ChatGPT from just some chatbot to something that nearly felt like a living human being. The first is the new speed of voice. Previous voice modes felt like a machine. You would talk, you would wait, and then it would respond. The new speed of voice generation and the ability to react to your interruptions would make it feel like a real conversation. The second was the voice quality. It wasn't stock voices. GPT-4o could talk faster or slower, it could inflect a much wider range of tone, and even do impressions. That's all stuff that felt limited to humans before. So with that dropping right before, both the Google I/O attendees and Googlers themselves had big questions for how their announcements were going to be perceived. So let's talk about those announcements. There was a lot of action when it came to building and improving models. So here are the major ones. Their Gemini 1.5 Pro model, which is competitive with GPT-4, can now work with 2 million tokens, which means you can feed it 1.5 million words or 2 hours of video. That's a lot of content. That's a long video, and it could understand it all. They also announced a new Gemini 1.5 Flash. It's basically Gemini 1.5 Pro, but faster and way cheaper while trading off a little bit of quality. Like the Pro version, Flash can work with all types of input, which means text, images, and audio, and still has that 2 million token context. Google needed faster and cheaper models like Flash to power all their new AI features that they plan to offer for free. So this one was actually very important for Google to build for themselves. They also announced a new image model, Imagen 3. At this point, we all know that AI-generated images are really, really good, with the slight exception of some lighting quirks that throw you off. So Imagen 3, as good as it is, the reaction is sort of like, okay, look, we get it. Midjourney, Imagen 3, you can all create really good images. It's not that impressive. They also announced a new video model called Veo. Now, this is a big announcement from Google, which goes up against OpenAI's video model called Sora. But video is really, really hard to do still. So don't expect to be able to use this for a while. We've heard that even Sora was going to be available as late as December of this year. So this was more of a signaling thing than anything else. Then there were all these smaller models that we don't need to get into, but they have all these crazy names like Gemma 2, Polygemma, and other ones. It's just a lot. Now at this point, Google is down to one big differentiator between Gemini and OpenAI's models. The two big points used to be multimodality, that Gemini was natively built to handle all types of input, while OpenAI had to rely on stapling together separate models that dealt with text, image, and audio separately. The other point was that Gemini could handle 1 million tokens of context, which is like 5 to 10 times more than their competitors in OpenAI and Anthropic. This time, with GPT-4o also being natively multimodal, they spent a lot of time on the one angle that's left, that huge context limit of 1 million tokens and in fact, doubling that to 2 million tokens now. Outside of that, there wasn't that much that was truly groundbreaking with AI models. Now, this is to be expected. Google is still behind when it comes to the new stuff that makes our brains explode because AI can do some new amazing thing. That kind of work comes out of OpenAI. Gemini 1.5 Flash, Imagine 3, VO, all of these they're fine because OpenAI is already doing a lot of the same stuff. It's not new to us. What is new from Google that OpenAI can't do is the integration across a ton of Google products. And every year, Google I/O is a very stark reminder of just how big Google is. It is huge. It serves every single kind of person imaginable. They have so many products to update you on. I mean, even the keynote was 2 hours long compared to OpenAI's product launch event, which was 30 minutes. And the people who planned the event at Google called that keynote the consumer keynote. They had yet another 2 hours of just the developer keynote. So when it comes to AI, it can be very tempting to directly compare OpenAI and Google. Oh, OpenAI makes the best model, so OpenAI is clearly the best at AI. That's not necessarily true. You know how many users ChatGPT has? A few 100 million. So not too shabby, of course. But you know how many people use Gmail? 2 billion. And that's just one of their products. The goal for Google is to integrate AI into all of their products. For some of them, they need to do this to defend their lead. That's anything where they're already dominant. So for example, Google owns the vast majority of internet searches in the US via Google Search. 1 of every 4 people using email use Gmail, and 65% of the world's internet users use Google Chrome. These are all commanding leads that Google wants to defend. For some other products, AI can be the moment where it strengthens their case against another big player. The huge one is Android and Google Pixel versus iOS and the iPhone. Now, that one is still a very tough and uphill battle for Google, but AI can do some damage if for some reason Google pulls off the integration, but Apple does not. Another big one is Google Workspace versus Microsoft Office. Microsoft has long won in the enterprise because they have all those crazy features that those big corporate IT teams care about, like security and privacy and identity and compliance. Google wins in consumers and small businesses, but AI just might transform the nature of working in documents and slides and things like that. So in summary, Google doesn't win just because it builds AI. Google wins if it can actually put AI in your hands via the products that it already has you using. So that explains the majority of what they're working on. Again, a massive list of products that they make. So there's a very, very long list. So for example, AI in Gmail will help you summarize an email thread, search for information across your entire inbox, and draft a response to your thread. AI in Google Search is finally rolling out. It's called AI Overviews, and they're live today, at least in the US. I'm already starting to see them in my Google searches. AI in Google Workspace means you can chat and ask Gemini to do things like move all this information from this email to a Google Doc. Can you create a Google Sheet from this information, etc., etc. Heck, AI is even in places you wouldn't expect it. For example, they're literally putting an AI model into Google Chrome itself. Like your browser will have the small Gemini Nano AI model shipped with it that runs on your computer. And same thing with the Android. They're putting Gemini Nano in Android right after they had put it in all Google Pixel 8 phones. So this is what I mean by the reach. Google makes all the world's most popular apps, but they also make devices. They make operating systems. They make developer tools, and they can put AI on every single part of it. That can take a 2-hour keynote to explain. Now, compare this to OpenAI. OpenAI has been building leading AI models that nobody else can build, or at least the others are months or years away from catching up. But outside of that, they're really just building ChatGPT. Now, of course, they're making ChatGPT as cool as they can make it talk to you like a human, let it see things, let you talk back. But the main game is to focus on building the best AI possible on behalf of developers. Then let them build the new thing. Here's a quote from Sam Altman's personal blog about this. It reads, "Instead, it looks like we'll create AI, and then other people will use it to create all sorts of amazing things, that we all benefit from. These are two different games that naturally follow the current position of these two companies. Google is the incumbent. It has things that it needs to protect and keep going. It also has people inside the org whose personal incentives for things like promotions and pay raises will keep those products going as they are. OpenAI is the challenger and wants to bet on disruption, so it'll build technology that enables and accelerates that disruption. Credit to Google, they have seemed to have broken one part of its image from last year, which is that it was much too bloated of an organization to build new things. Last year, it reacted slow. It couldn't rally the huge org to make the cool new AI thing. But this year, Google seems to have dialed it up a notch. A lot of these announcements are the right announcement for what they're doing. If you have 2 billion users on Gmail, you would want to build useful AI features for Gmail users. If people are searching on Google up to 8 billion times a day, you would want to build the right experience for them. And this new wave of AI has made the user experience better, so now they're rolling out those AI-generated answers in search. Google's challenge then is twofold. Part one is a short-term thing. Can they actually deliver the thing they said they're going to deliver? That is the other part of its image from last year that it hasn't been able to shake. Google launches follow a notoriously frustrating pattern. Announce a big thing, make a big flashy demo that looks awesome, and then say, hey, it's not ready yet, so go sign up for this waitlist and maybe you'll get access by 2026. And from my read of this conference, that has not changed yet. They've got the announcement right, perhaps, but the delivery is still a huge question mark. Now, Google isn't just working on the more obvious integrations that defend their current products. There are some efforts that will press the envelope of innovation if they really work. But because of Google's slow delivery, everyone's exceptionally doubtful that you're going to see them anytime soon. The first one is Project Astra, which they call a universal AI agent. What it is feels very similar to what OpenAI launched on Monday. It's an AI that can listen to what you say or any other audio. It can see what you're pointing the camera at. It can reason across these things, then spit out speech that responds to it all. You can point the camera at an engineering diagram and ask it for advice. You can point the camera out the window and it'll identify which neighborhood of which city you're in. And the wow moment was asking it for where you had left your glasses and it recalling the location based on what it had seen through the camera. But there are two major differences between Project Astra and OpenAI's demo. The first is that OpenAI was demoing GPT-4o, one single model that could do all of those things. Project Astra is still one step behind. It's still the previous approach of taking a bunch of separate AI models that do different pieces and stapling them together. The end result is that the performance is slightly worse. In this case, the voice is less dynamic and it's slightly slower. The OpenAI demo was just very snappy. The second difference is that OpenAI actually had a live demo to show. Google mostly showed a pre-recorded demo, which you can always assume is cherry-picked from the best examples that they ever generated. However, they did eventually show a recording of a Google employee using Project Astra to watch the live keynote from their own event. And I actually got to try a version of Project Astra, so it definitely is real, but it definitely was limited as well. They basically set up 4 little demos for you to play with, and as you spoke, Astra was able to identify what the camera was looking at, what you drew on the screen, or what you had circled on the screen. And it could respond decently fast with creative answers to certain prompts like, tell me a story about what you see on the screen, things like that. But a tightly controlled demo to a limited set of people that you have handpicked to be there is not, real. With Google's track record, it's only real when people actually start to get access and test it in public. Okay, so that's part one of their challenge, the short-term question of whether or not they can actually deliver. Part two is a longer-term, more existential question. Will this wave of AI actually produce new products that completely topple our understanding of things like search and email and all the things that Google is already strong at? And if so, what is the right way for Google to play? Should they wait and see and defend against the challengers that show up? Or should they try and actively self-disrupt? And if they do want to self-disrupt, can they muster the internal culture, manage the incentives, and convince Wall Street that this is actually good business? In my opinion, Google I/O was full of promising moves in the right direction for Google, Now they need to finish the job. Some quick hitters to leave you with. Stability AI, the makers of open source models like Stable Diffusion, might be looking to sell the company. The Stability playbook was to talk big game and big numbers, not actually have a plan to make money and burn your entire cash pile. So the number of people surprised by this eventual outcome? 0. OpenAI has lost key researchers like Ilya Sutskever, who led the safety efforts after the board had staged a surprise ouster of CEO Sam Altman last November. This is the last domino to fall in the 6-month political battle in which Ilya largely disappeared from public mentions. Now that AI reviews are being widely rolled out in Google Search, digital marketing professionals and media publishers have issued their full and final reaction. Google is no longer a platform to bet on. And the core reason? Why would I focus on giving to Google when all it's going to do is take my content and summarize it without rewarding me? This is Pete wrapping up the Neuron for May 16th. I'll see you in a couple days.